Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar series, The Road to Success. I'm Jody O'Brien, and I thank you all for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon. And thank you very much to the Greater Boston Association of Realtors for having us. I do want to just go over a couple housekeeping things before I start. I want to remind everybody, if they have not seen our previous editions of this program, that they are all being recorded, this one included. So if you would like, you can find them, the previous ones, or this one again, if you'd like to hear it, on the Greater Boston Associations of Realtors YouTube page or the registration page that you are registering for these series of webinars. So you can find them there and go through and go back or share them with other people, etc. from that. I also want to remind everybody that on today's webinar, we have a handout. So if you look down, again, your toolbar should be at the bottom of your page. It's typically on that toolbar, you should see the question mark where you can chat over a question. You see the hand where you can raise a hand and how things are going. So feel free to play with either of those if you want, and just give me a shout out to start out with. But you'll see the handout that's there for today's session. So, so it's kind of like a takeaway, shall we say, in that. And then kind of last but not least, I do want to remind everybody that the latest up-to-date information that's available for them is on both the Greater Boston Association of Realtors COVID-19 page, the Mass Association of Realtors COVID-19 page, and the National Association of Realtors COVID-19 page. And I really encourage you to use those as great resources. We have everything from on the national level, talking about, from the national level of unemployment, our small business, administrative loans, et cetera. MAR is tracking those things on the state level, as well as state regulations, Title V, smoke detector certs, all those things that are going on. And Greater Boston is tracking everything on a much more local level. So you can use all three of those things as resources. I also want to remind everyone that the National Associations of Realtors at nar.realtor/right tools right now is where you can access a lot of material, training, marketing at either a free or greatly discounted price. So keep that in mind, bookmark that page and utilize that page. So everyone has some things in order resources that they can utilize. So today's presentation is You Can Call. And I know I did do a little play on words, everyone, because frankly, most of you who have sat in my classroom or on a webinar with me previously when I was doing Manageable Mondays for Greater Boston, you're actually more used to me talking about risk management things, or in other words, things you can't do, such as the do not call list. But I really wanted to make sure everyone understood the resources that they had available to them and the way they can conduct business. So I dragged this course back out of the dark cobwebs of I've been calling it my course hoarding problem that I have over 20 years, I guess, about now in teaching classes. I have kept almost all of those classes online and found them actually quite useful for you. But I dusted it off, I put it back, and I put a little bit of spin on it for today because frankly, everything isn't appropriate. That said, the handout that you have, all right, so again, just click on it, download it. It shouldn't matter what device you're on because it's a PDF file. So you should be able to grab it. I did not change that handout, everyone, because I wanted it to be a great resource for you and sort of an evergreen resource. So I would say to you that the handout has some things that I would consider inappropriate for the current conditions we're in right now, right? The presentation today, I think, I have dusted it off. I sort of, changed it up a little to really address what's going on in today's market. And I don't know how everyone else was. I try to limit myself on my news for the day, because you can only take so much before you kind of go crazy. But obviously, I watched a little bit of yesterday, and we all know that there's a huge debate on who gets to like open up the economy and the business again. Well, let me share with you. I'm going to declare myself as in charge of opening up the real estate business, and I want to open it up in a way that's safe and doable. And I want to give you permission, particularly any of you who may have still at this point been sitting on the sidelines. And if you're sitting on the sidelines, not doing anything, and I don't mean not doing anything, because frankly, you're homeschooling, you're cleaning, you're doing all sorts of real activities. But if you've not been doing real estate business, I'm going to tell you there's still a lot of ways that even with that physical distancing, the not getting, not doing things that were in person, showings, open houses, et cetera, there's still a lot of ways to do business, and there's still a lot of need to do business. So go back and watch, if you have not already watched, some of the beginning of this session, including the 10 things to do today. But let's start by really looking at some of the abilities to kind of get out there and call people. So let me just, everyone, kind of move my camera out of the way here. Sorry to up close you here. I said to Sandy, I unfortunately, you may have noticed I'm in my office finally. I got the my office completed as much as possible. There's a couple of pieces missing still, but I'm not crazy about the setup because I didn't think ahead of time. I have it set up kind of left-handed here, which is not a good idea, but so we'll manage, we'll struggle through till I get the setup just correct. But the question isn't, can you call? I think the question is, should you call? And I think, everyone, the answer to that question is yes. All right. I think one of the things we should realize that this is a personal relationship-based business. And I know that most of you agree with me in regards to that, because I constantly hear you complain, dish, downgrade, etc. Anything that is not that personal relationship. Those third-party aggregators and those, distant buyer sites and all of those things that are not in this personal relationship. So if we truly believe that there's a personal relationship, we need to reach out and keep that personal connection going. And you heard me make reference to, I'm a big believer, everybody, in talking about changing the language from social distancing to physical distancing, because physical distancing is what we're actually being asked to do. And we should not be social distancing, because there's a way to be socially connected to people without being physically connected. And I think we're proving that on a fairly regular basis out there, and things that are going on. So I think that we should really be practicing that information and kind of going forward to that. So let me just move this out of the way. And let me talk, everyone. I'm going to spend most of my time here really talking about my sphere of influence. I am not going to be talking about the old calling, dialing for dollars. And I think I've mentioned this before, but if you don't know this, you never heard me say this before, I am a sweat hog. Yeah. And if you don't know what that is, everyone, it's a program that was created many years ago by Floyd Wickman. It was an extremely popular program run for a great number of years. There were all sorts of branch off programs by other people later on in the process here. but it was a cold calling, dialing for dollars based program of how to kind of ramp up and do your business. So I am a girl who has in the past opened up a telephone book and literally dialed for dollars until I got what I wanted. That is not what I'm talking about. First of all, that now interplays with the do not call, so it doesn't matter what circumstance it is. It's not possible to do that any longer. Secondly, I don't think even under the best of circumstances, it's necessarily one of our most efficient ways. And in this environment, I think it's pretty much no go. So all of those things that are on, again, as I said, on your handout that are really in the cold related factory, I think they're just not possible. I think if you're calling up someone you've never met, you've no relationship with, and say, are you thinking about buying or selling a house? I don't even think you're going to get that out of your mouth before their hang up, even if it was possible for them to, in essence, accomplish that goal. But does staying in touch with your sphere of influence doesn't really matter from those aspects? Well, here's a couple of figures I thought you might be interested in getting. So the top 150 agents reported, everyone, and this is according to Mike Ferry's coaching, all right, that the majority of their business, right, 28% of their business is from referrals, right? I got one better for you. Because according to the NAR's home buyers and sellers profile, and I updated this one, everyone, to our most recent profile was 2019, is about 67% of your buyers and sellers come from resources that we would consider your sphere of influence. If 60% of your business comes from your sphere of influence, I don't think you need to do anything else. Because I think that the other amount of your business, the other 30% of your business would just fill in based on the business that you are currently doing, right? So if I get a seller from my sphere of influence, right? Past seller, friend of a seller, builder of a seller, any of those aspects to it, I think, right, that maybe doing an open house in the future, if we ever do them again, let's talk about virtual open houses, I might get another buyer or seller, and that fills in that 30%, right? So, and again, many of you know I've been tracking this NAR profile of home buyers and sellers since 1991, and in particular tracking the source of business, where do buyers come from, where do sellers come from. And I think that's significantly important. FYI, everyone, I think that is a must-have piece of research. It now comes out in November after conference every year, or actually during conference it comes out. It's, I think, around $20 to download it in a PDF format for free. Best $20 you could ever spend. It is offered periodically for free out there so that you can download this piece of information. And I actually think, I'm not positive, but I think it's actually free in the right tools right now process. So if you've not downloaded the Home Buyers and Sellers survey from 2019, do so. I call it your business plan in a box. And here's where you're going to understand how all about buyers, all about sellers, all about how they interact with real estate. So does staying in touch with your sphere of influence matter? Yes, because it's the base of your business. It's truly where your buyers are going to come from. All right. But why don't you stay in touch? Because here's an interesting fact that we know. 67%, if I add it all up, come to there, which is more than how many people do you pass buyers and sellers. When asked, after the completion of a transaction, would you use the same agent again? All right. If possible, the numbers come up to 80%. If you start adding in sellers who move farther away, the numbers go down a little bit, but not significantly. So most people would use their current agent again. Why don't they? They don't because we don't stay in touch. And here's an interesting study NAR did a number of years ago. I haven't seen them repeat this recently, but a number of years ago, they tried to figure out how long did a seller or buyer who were not in communication with their agents remember who their previous agent was. And they remember your name for about a year. They remember the company name for about 5 years. And most of you know that because you have received a call or an email or some type of connection now through your website or et cetera, is I bought my house from you. And you go, you did? I don't even know who you are. And what you discover is that they don't mean you, they mean the company, which is great. Now you got a lead from the company you work for. It's not so good if the agent is still sitting beside you, but they don't remember. So a significant issue that's going on. So why don't you stay in touch? What are some of the problems or some of the reasons? Well, number one, most people equate it to somewhat of a telemarketing thing. You don't want to, kind of be cold calling, you're thinking about buying or selling a house 6 months after they close. Yeah, right? You don't want to be really pushy. You don't want to ask for business. That's maybe not a good idea. Or you might be begging or bothering them, so that may not be such a good idea. And frankly, you're pretty sure you don't need to call them because when they're ready, they'll call you. Yeah. Again, almost every one of those premises is based on the fact that you're asking for business. But there's two things I know about your sphere of influence. They don't want to buy a house and they don't want to sell a house. If you had any of those problems before, begging, bothering, asking for business, I won't call them, they'll call me, etc., right? Then your mindset is that you're looking for someone to buy or sell a house. But the fact of the matter is, they don't want to buy a house, they don't want to sell a house. And frankly, I have never seen this done, and I'd be so interested to see this done. And a couple of times, MAR has pulled their specific data from the profile of home buyers and sellers, but we've never done this portion of the question, or we've certainly never done it in a bigger spread, maybe New England. But I think if we look at the average amount of time before someone buys or sells again, it would exceed the national average, which is around 7 to 10 years given on the particular survey that we've done. I think New Englanders are far less likely to move, and I think we might see closer to 20 years. So if we are consistently calling up Bob Jones or Mary Smith, that was our past buyer and seller, and going at some point in time, oh, how's Fluffy? Do you want to buy a house? Oh, how are the kids? Do you want to sell a house? Yeah, right. You are begging and bothering. You are asking for business when there isn't any intent to. You do sound like a telemarketer, right? So the most important thing that I can get across to you is that they don't want to buy and they don't want to sell. So what do I want to know? Well, there's one thing that I know, and that is they know other people. Yeah, they know other people. And when I am front of mind, not only as Jody O'Brien, not only as Jody O'Brien, a real estate agent, but good friend and expert realtor, that makes a difference in who they know. So if I maintain that personal relationship is actually what is proactively, without my input, actually making that lead generation for me. Yeah. Why do I want to stay in touch with that person? Is because that relationship is important. It is extremely important. That relationship is never about asking them to buy or sell a house. It's a relationship-based business. And when I have a relationship, there is an automatic generation of lead generations for me. So I need to completely reset my mind in order to make that connection. Now, you say, well, Jody, I got a million scripts. And by the way, there are a zillion scripts out there that revolve around, are you thinking about buying or selling a house? Right? And I just told you to throw all of those out the window. So what do I say? And you may have caught this, everyone. Recently, we were talking about making this connection with our sphere of influence on my podcast. In other words, I know some of you have been tuning into that on Wednesdays when we go on Facebook Live to do that with Evan Fuchs, Lee York, and Brent Lancaster. And Lee made this comment about equating it to her car dealership, who called her up to see how he was. And well, he wasn't really interested because his car dealership was clearly trying to sell him a car. Well, you have two problems there. Problem number one is if you have a connection with someone you don't have a relationship with. So if I walked out of the dealership with my new car and I've never contacted them again or never received anything but that kind of, regular holiday card that everybody signed, or frankly, they did it so much cuter because they did a Thanksgiving card instead of the holidays. Yeah. And I have no other connection with them, then they have no other relationship with me than as a salesperson, right? And number two, if after they call me, they have no relationship-based business to derive from me, then I also don't make that connection. So how do I make sure I develop that relationship with these people so that they truly understand that I want to make that connection? So we're going to look at making our relationship grow with that understanding of there's my sphere of influence. And notice, everyone, this is a reverse pyramid, right? And it's actually kind of quite a balancing act to make that pyramid balance from that lowest amount. So there's my sphere of influence. I meet two friends through them. Through those two friends, I now meet four friends. I think they made a television commercial about that one time, right? They tell two friends who tell two friends, right? That's how it works, right? Developing that relationship. And I've been following a lot of information on social media, and I've been following some people that have done this extraordinarily well, and I've been following some people that have been doing this extraordinarily poorly, in my opinion, right? And I think that one of our key elements is not just on direct communication, not just picking up the phone and calling, or using some of our virtual techniques in Zoom or FaceTime or et cetera. From that, I think our social media platforms as well is making sure that I have that true connection on my sphere of influence and developing that way that I am connecting with those people in my sphere of influence. And by the way, then two of their friends are seeing me because they get tagged, and then two more of their friends, which is now four of me, is getting tagged, and et cetera. So I'm always focused on that tip of the pyramid to make sure that I am making that connection really work and benefit to the group. So how do I want to do this? Well, up number one is making this part of my daily routine. So here's what I want everyone to start to think about. Here's the permission where I say, open up your virtual door and get doing business. I don't care, everyone. I should tilt this camera down a little bit so everyone gets to see that I, just like many of you, I'm sitting here dressed up at the top and still in my sweats and slippers on the bottom here. And if you're not going to virtually use the camera, maybe you don't even have to dress up on the top portion of it. But I need to every day create a daily routine, which is reaching out to my sphere of influence. I will share with you again that first thing we talked about is the 10 things to do today is really, if for whatever reason you have never heard me say this before in class, and I don't think a class goes by, certainly no designation class that many of you have sat in. When I talk about ABR or SRS or the CRB broker classes, I don't think there's a class that I go by when I don't talk about that it is a requirement to have a CRM, a client relationship management, and frankly, I don't think I really care, although I don't see any need for it, if you're still using 3x5 cards in a pen and paper. I don't see any need for it, but I think there's lots of ways, from everything that are, very advanced and expensive tools to things that are free for you. So every day, I'm going to start in, I'm going to create my CRM if I don't have it, and then I'm going to start working on it, right? And here's what I'm going to do. Every day, I'm going to make 3 to 5 calls. And again, we called this so you can call, but I want to expand this into a broader aspect. I'd like you to make 3 to 5 contacts per day. So here's a couple of things you can do besides simply, dialing for dollars, making out to the call. You can send a message, a text, a messenger message, a email if you have to, a contact. You can do a Zoom call to a group of people, to a neighborhood or a particular group of people. You can do targeted, tagged social media events. Tagging specific people and delivering them a message, sending all sorts of messages, happy birthdays to everyone, how are you doing, or events that are happening, or resources that people are looking for. So 3 to 5 contacts every day, 3 calls, right? That's 5 days per week. So next 5, and again, we know that we have, unfortunately, 2 to 3 weeks at least that we are now. So I think we're officially into just hitting the end of the third, less than 3 weeks. So we're hitting down to the 2-week countdown, but we know it might go longer than that. That we're going to have some social distancing or physical distancing, excuse me. So 5 days a week, I'm going to make my contacts, which means that I'm going to make 15 to 25 contacts per week. Again, contacts to my sphere of influence. Now, if you've been in the business for a while, you should literally have hundreds to thousands of people, right? And remember, every transaction you have is actually 2 sides of the transaction. So remember, if I'm working with the seller and I listed this, the seller, there was a buyer in that transaction, right? And that buyer should have gone in my client relationship management. I may not have had a relationship as strong as their original agent was, who has maintained that. But in many cases, they have been, as I like to call them, orphaned, right? And I can make a great connection. My seller went out and perhaps bought another house. They became a buyer, and that seller also went on. So I can have literally thousands of people in my sphere of influence. I have neighbors, I have friends. Here's the really simple definition that I've always used it as an example of what's my sphere. I'm walking down the street, everyone, and I see you coming towards me, and I can tag you by your name, even if it's just your first name. Hi, Mary, how are you? And there's something that connects it. How How are the kids? How is church group? How is the soccer team? We have some connection. That's my sphere of influence. All those people should be in my CRM as well. So I should have thousands of people. And even if you're brand new, I've done this exercise with brand new agents. First thing they have to do is start their CRM and put that list of their sphere of influence. And their goal was always 200 people, right? And almost everyone could hit it, right? On the people that they knew, that sphere of influence, as I just said, what makes that connection? That means 6 to 100 calls per month. That would take me 2 months before I even got through my entire list as a brand new agent. That's almost a year before everyone gets through their list as an experienced agent. So we're really establishing a long-term habit that will continue to go on for how to talk to people. By the way, I'll just scoot over out of camera range for just a minute because I know I showed you my journal, and you guys all know that I happen to be a big believer in electronic database. So there's not much that I do with pen and paper, but this is one of them. I happen to use Mel Robbins, the 5-second journal, which I mentioned earlier before here. But guys, right here on the top with my little fancy gold clip, everyone, I have my contact list. All right. I have my contact list, and that's the people that I have, and I have it right in my journal. I have the master list printed out so that I can make, whoop, just dropped it on the floor there. I can make that connection with those people that I want to connect with. So again, they're all in my database. I just printed that list out because I really want to make those calls and make that relationship on a regular basis, right? By the way, when you have it right in front of you, you really work hard to make that connection, birthdays, a list, etc. We'll go through more of those techniques. That means 720 to 1,200 contacts per year that I'm going to make, which equals, yeah, how many leads? Well, I'm going to tell you, the better you get at this, the more lead conversions you have. We have done a tremendous amount of research over the period of time, and frankly, the numbers are kind of all over the place. It really depends upon your consistency for doing it, your connection, your relationship connection with them, and what your success rate is. Everybody has success over it. Everyone has success from that, and we've done that over and over. Those brand new agents, everybody, that that were focusing on their 200 sphere of influence, my goal was to have them hit the 12 transactions, right? So 12 leads, and they didn't get all the leads. So we had an amount of how many presentations, how many connections, how many close to connection. We had those as calculated. That was their goal, that they were looking to make that connection. And when they were very diligent about it, they could make those connections. So start tracking it and understand what are your numbers and start tweaking as to what you're better at. So here's the part that really stops most people in the track, and particularly a lot of you who are really those processed oriented people. You all get, right? You all get putting them in your CRM. You all get connecting with them. You all get the numbers of making the connections. And yet you still stumble over why don't you do it? And here's why. Because what do you say? And I'm going to share with you, I had this conversation with my best friend. Some of you know she was my first broker. And we actually worked as a team when I was out there selling in new construction. And we had this connection over about connecting with her sphere of influence to keep her business in the loop as to what to go. And I made mention of a particular subdivision that we both had listed over the years that obviously when I left, it kind of all went to her when I went to teaching full time. And I said, a lot of those people were really close. Why don't you reach back out to them and see and try to make that connection? with them. And she was the same way. What would I say? What would it look like if I don't say it? Well, you know what? I think here's the first thing that you want to say is, and by the way, I want to give credit to Evan Fuchs for this, and it was the script. I was thinking about you and I wanted to reach out. How are you? And how can I help? As simple as that. That's a simple message. I was thinking about you and I wanted to reach out. How are you? And how can I help? Just an FYI, I hope everyone knows how to screenshot this because this is brilliant. If you don't, Evan's script is actually in our podcast page, which is facebook.com/inotherwordsre, if you're looking for it as well. But screenshot this and take it. And Evan used that not only with their clients, they had a lot of property management clients, et cetera. For Evan is a broker owner of Bullhead Realty in Bullhead, Arizona. He shared this with all of his agents. Reach out. And would I have loved you to have done this a week ago or maybe even up to 2 weeks ago? Yes, but I still think it's not too late. Every one of those people who you would consider your sphere of influence, oh, Mary, I was just thinking about you. And you know what? I was waiting to reach out. How are you? How can I help? Is there anything I can help you with? You are a resource for a tremendous amount of information that people have. I don't want to sell you anything. I just want to know, what can I help you with? Anything you need, please know I'm here. Got some great resources, anything you want. I'm glad, hope everything's well, etc. If that conversation just lasts a minute or 2 minutes, you made that connection. That's the very first thing everyone should be working on. That's your script that you should really be going through the initial process, right? Second, everyone, I think you should make sure that your social media is following you. Your sphere, is following you on social media. Now, I want to tell you that as much as we could debate what is the greatest platform, who's on the platform, etc., there's no way you can be an expert on all these platforms. You need to really pick a platform. You could have a secondary minor platform, but you really need a main platform. Where is your sphere of influence most likely to be, right? So, and again, because my connection is all of you, I like to track you in as many of these different places as I can. And we know that there's lots of places where you are. Facebook is the biggest place for you to be interacting. I think Instagram's fastly coming up on that. A few of you are on Twitter. Some of you are using some of the other aspects like blogs or Pinterest or et cetera from that. We have some real YouTubers out in the real estate world who are exercising those. And frankly, the one who isn't up here, which I'm a big believer in, is LinkedIn. And I think that's one we should all consider to be more important. But there's a reverse aspect of that social media, and that social media provides me with those resources or that information that people are looking for. So I think one of the big things is keeping what I like to call a swipe file. And mine sits right on my desktop, everyone. It's a connection in, and I've said this before, I am a big believer in Evernote. I use Evernote, Evernote. If you're not familiar with it, the icon looks like an elephant, all right? I call it my brain on steroids, right? Because I can keep everything with it. And by the way, it doesn't matter whether you're what I call a filer or a piler, all right? Evernote is really easy to be able to search for what you're doing. So I keep my link right there on my desktop to it. And one of the things I love about Evernote is it well, actually, there's a couple of things, but it crosses platforms, right? So it doesn't matter where I want to access it, my phone, my tablet, or my computer. It crosses platform. It's all there. It syncs almost immediately. and it has what's called the clipper to it. So I can use, for example, the web clipper to take an article and literally clip it into my swipe file. So it's there. So when I read something and I think, oh, this might be of interest to someone in the future, I kind of link it over into my swipe file. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It's just something that I think is helpful and something that is easy to use. So let me ask you, I'm going to put people's hands down. How many people are using Evernote? Raise your hand, that little hand in the bottom of your screen. Raise your hand if you're using Evernote. And you can chat over to me if you're using it. Wow, no one? I'm looking at some of you because I know you've been in my classes before and you've heard me once or twice or 500 times talk about this particular aspect. So I'm going to highly recommend everyone. Here's another great to-do list on the upcoming time is to download Evernote and look to use it. By the way, obviously some of you are Android users and you like some of the Google things, Google Docs or Google Keep. I think that's what it's called. I played with some of those things as well. Evernote crosses platforms, so it doesn't matter if you have Apple, PC, Android products, etc. From that. But what you're always on the lookout for is as you go through your day, you read your email, you link over to a website, you're on something linked on realtor.com or Right Tools right now, or etc. You're always looking for something that might be helpful to someone. I'm not trying to make sure I attach everything to a particular person. I'm just looking for the swipe file. By the way, my question, how can I help? Might be, you probably don't know, but do you happen to know? Wow, I think I just read that the other day. What was the latest report on that? Let me see if I can bring it up. Bam, into my swipe file, searching for that information. By the way, here's just a little tidbit where you keep this information. You want it to be able to do a search for it, including an extensive search through the words in a PDF file. So those are things that Google Documents and Evernote and those types of things can happen. So let's just say, again, most of you know that I happen to be down here on Cape Cod. And, I'm going to have to make a business trip up to Boston in the next couple of weeks and everything is shut down. I don't know. I suppose you probably don't know this, but is the bus running? Do you think I'd be able to take the bus? And, is that possible? And so, you know what? I know I read that just recently. By the way, I get the Cape Cod and Plymouth business connection. So I read their newsletter and my email, and I thought, oh, someone might want to know the Plymouth Brockton bus line in their current condition. I popped it into my swipe file. And I said, oh, here it is. Here's what they said the other day. Yeah, that's how you can help. Is keeping that information. By the way, I could proactively also call you and say, I just thought that you in particular might want to know this. I don't know if you've seen it. And I just got a post from a person that I've actually taken speaking coaching from, Michael Port. You may have heard me speak of him in his program, Heroic Public Speaking. And Michael used this example of receiving a text from one of us, one of the people that have gone through his program and follow him, et cetera, and said, I'm sure a zillion people have already told you about the live streaming episode of Dave Matthews. Well, if you know Michael, you happen to know he's a big Dave Matthews fan. It never goes beyond a second without him having to mention that particular thing. So you happen to know that. And Michael said it was literally the first and only person who contacted him to connect him with a live streaming event of Dave Matthews, right? What a great personal connection when you say, so you're just randomly going through things, you see this post of Dave Matthews doing a live streaming, you say, oh, you know what? Michael Port, who's in my sphere of influence, is a big Dave Matthews fan. He might want to watch this. or, you know, at least mark it so we can watch it later if it's going to be streamed or whatever. So those are the type of things. That's what a swipe file means. And by the way, I think it's a newspaper term, swipe file, it comes from, the file comes from the old days when people used to like literally rip things out of newspapers and magazines and et cetera to keep them as a swipe file. Now I'm going to do that electronically as we come through. All right. Here's the other way you can help, and that is by becoming a really hyper local area expert. So I happen to be reading a post on social media where someone was asking a much larger organization to keep track of really local aspects of local information to the current environment. And, you know, when the first thing I thought about it was, if you're doing business in those market areas, they're pretty diverse. And if you are doing it on only one of those marketplaces, shouldn't you be the local area expert who gets that information, not only gives it to your clients, but also can gives it off to your, you know, your association, right? Or the organization that you belong to. What are the specifics, right? So I may want to know something that's, again, not just local, but even hyper local. And I'll use my environment again. And it's true. For years, I used to call them named neighborhoods, right? And those were the neighborhoods. It didn't matter how long they were. For many years, I lived in one that was built in the 1930s. That was still literally called by its name, given as a subdivision in the 1930s, Johnson Acres. And that's what people still had. It has its own Facebook group and et cetera. You know, part of the town of Andover, part of Essex County, part of Massachusetts. But we were considered, you know, we had a really defined neighborhood and a hyper local activity. Now I'm down here in Cape Cod, and we actually have a very similar, it's just a tad bigger. It's villages, right? And one of the things that many Cape Cod real estate agents find that the necessity to teach people is that things like Hyannis are actually not towns, they're villages of the town of Barnstable, right? So understanding what's going on in those particular villages, school systems, schools, et cetera, is even more specific than knowing what's going on in the town of Barnstable. So understanding, keeping focus, keeping those connections to really local activities and becoming a local expert is really going to be critical in a time like this. So I want to know from you what some of your ideas are and what you would communicate to your contacts. So type out in those question marks. Let's share, everyone. Let's give some others some ideas. What do you want to reach out to your sphere of influence and help them with, tell them about, give them information, organize them, do anything? What are some of the ideas that you want to do? And by the way, I'm pretty good at reading shorthand. So you let me know. The question mark should be, again, at the bottom of your screen. It may depend upon how you're holding your device, so it could be over here. Just click on that question screen. It will open up a text box, and you can let me know. How are you communicating? What are you doing? What are your ideas? All right, how am I doing left-handed here? Let me detach this so I can read everyone. All right. Oh, Denise, that's a fabulous one after particularly but after the particular day or 2 days that we've had is tree services, right? So, I mean, obviously a great number of you were affected by the windstorm. And frankly, again, you have connections into your community and knowing them. So simply, you know, I was thinking about you. I was wondering how you were doing. Do you need any help? You know, how did you survive the storm? Fabulous, fabulous connection. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I had everything charged and was online. And I was like probably more worried than I'd ever been about a windstorm before. And I'm sure it's just the conditions. So that's a fabulous one to go through. And by the way, I'm gonna play off of Denise's as well. Talk about how they manage to go through homeowners insurance in a time like this, and what they need to do. Wendy, that's a fabulous one, right? The seniors, particularly anyone on your in your sphere of influence, your past buyers or sellers that you helped assist maybe in our downsizing aspect. Do you need anything? I know you can have some special hours, but I'm going out grocery shopping anyway. Can I get you anything? Or I'm off to, pick up, things at the pharmacy or et cetera. Is there anything I can help you with? I'm glad to run an errand for you. And I don't know if anyone caught on the news, but there was a newspaper delivery person. And by the way, that's another great one. A lot of people actually use the excuse to get out of the house to go get their newspaper as seniors, and now they really miss it because they're not going out. So, can you connect them to local delivery, or can you pick it up for them? But this gentleman realized that he had a couple of clients that he very nicely would get out of his car and put their newspaper in a place where they could get them. Other than that, he kind of, threw it out the window, et cetera. And I could clearly relate to that because for years we had a newspaper delivery person that always did the same thing for my mother. And he put it in the mail slot, he balanced it so it wouldn't fall through. I mean, they had this whole routine going. Well, he realized if they couldn't come out and get their newspaper, they probably couldn't come out and go grocery shopping. So he started on knocking on doors and said, is there anything you want or anything you need? And he literally started doing grocery shopping. So that's a fabulous idea as well. All sorts of services that you can go through. I agree with you. Some people are going to want real estate information, PF. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that some people, are just plain interested, right? They love real estate, they believe it's an indicator of the market, or B, they were already thinking about buying or selling or et cetera, and they're going to want. So if they initiate the conversation about the real estate market, absolutely have your data in place. Make sure you can give it to them from there. Oh, I love that one as well. What is the takeout from that? Oh, I guess, did I get that wrong? Sarah, I think, had the pricing. PF has the takeout strategies. I got to tell you, I saw a commercial for Phantom Gourmet on the takeout things, and my mouth was watering from that as well. So yeah, I just thought you might want to support local business at the same time you might be sick of your own cooking. So I just thought I'd let you know what I have discovered about the takeout in our areas, right? From that, John says posting it on video on Facebook. Any of these topics, by the way, are fabulous topics to actually do a video or do a live stream and answer their questions from there. Again, Roberta says, yep, making calls to 5 people on my list is a good idea. Mary, yeah, summer camp ideas. So most of you know, we're already talking about the questionability of summer camp. I can't even imagine what it's like for parents who have been home with kids and homeschooling, et cetera, to now potentially have summer camp, not necessarily be a go from that. So what are some of the ideas, those that are going to happen? What things do they need in place? Any of those aspects could be there. Anna, good idea, food pantries. So number one, food pantries are really in need. I think I made mention of following. If you don't follow Ann Jones, everyone out of Tacoma, Washington, on Instagram, if you're an Instagram user, I highly recommend you follow her. It's Tacoma Jones, all right, is her handle on Instagram. And she has always been extremely charitable, and she has always been involved in the sort of food, school, making sure kids don't have food insecurity in the school system. So right now she does on a regular basis sandwich drives with her. So she parks in the parking lot of her office. She's a broker owner in Tacoma. Parks in the office, flips up the back of her SUV. People come by, they load up her SUV, obviously social distancing behind it, and she drops them off and delivers them for everyone. And she has a regular setup that she's doing that. Food pantries are going to be in desperate need for these things. So again, Is any of your clients, everyone in need of this, or can they help out from that? Yeah, Roberta, I think that's a great thing to ask, because I was just saying to someone how hard Easter was for me, a holiday that I never really considered as a major holiday, till all of a sudden you told me I couldn't do the traditional things that I was expecting to do, you know? So it was tough. And I have to believe it's tough on people celebrating Passover and all sorts of other things. So, you know, how did it go? By the way, as holidays potentially come up, you could sort of proactively prevent some of those things as well. So you saw a lot of things of, you know, people dressing up as the Easter Bunny and, you know, entertaining the kids from physical distances, or putting some eggs in their front yard, et cetera, from that. So lots of different ways, showing people how to use Zoom so they can do virtual Passover dinners and et cetera from that. All right. Yeah, Janie, I know this is unfortunately one side effect to this particular platform. Unlike Zoom or other platforms, you can't see what everyone else writes. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to interact with each other. So I'm reading them all for you so you can see that. So yeah, I'm sorry, because hopefully again, let me just go back through them so everyone has a chance to potentially write them down as great ideas for this contact. There is. So how did you fare the storm, the recent storm we had? Do you need any specific services regards to the storm tree service? I added insurance. Helping out your senior clients or your people in your sphere of influence that are seniors, and you know, doing errands, etc. People who still want to know real estate information with pricing, etc. From that. Restaurants offering takeout and their availability and what they have. Doing these things on video on Facebook. Talking about you know, the contact with your 5 people. Summer camp ideas, food pantry ideas. How was your Easter or Passover there? So those are some of the things that some of you sent up. I had some questions. Evidently, I skipped over. Everyone went to Evernote. Evernote is available across its platforms. Everyone, I happen to be a Mac user, but I've been using Evernote since I was a PC user. So across its platforms, and it actually is a multiple platform. So some of you know, because I talk about this a lot, it's a really terrible place to be is when you have 2 different platforms. So I always had a PC and an iPhone, you know, which can sometimes be a struggle, and Evernote works seamlessly through that. So yes, it works on all of the platforms, and I use it for, I clip all of those things I think I might want to go back and reference, so it becomes like my virtual library. I keep my notes on it when I go to conferences, and I take notes. I keep it there so I can find them later. I keep all my recipes there, and it allows me to share my recipes as well. So Evernote files are shareable. So if you say, you know, Jody, that was delicious, kind of the recipe, I can just link you into the particular file or the entire folder if you're looking for. So lots of uses. That's why I call it my brain on steroids. I use it all my business, all my personal, you know, everything from there. So it is a great resource of things to utilize. So some great ideas that everyone shared, you know, from that. So as we kind of wrap it up, everyone, here's my final thoughts. This is all about give, give, give. Matter of fact, I think that's a good little thing to say to yourself before you reach out and contact anyone, phone call, email, text them, you know, Facebook, etc. What can I give you, right? Because that's what it's all about. And then it's all about listening, right? I was thinking about you today. I thought I would reach out to see how you were doing. Is there anything I can help you with? And then I know my mother told me never to say this, but shut up and listen. By the way, is the best sales skills anyone could ever learn, is to listen and find out how you can help, how you can help people. I hope we've given you some ideas. Please don't forget before you leave to download the file that's down there and click on it. I have a whole list of things to talk about. Remember, they're not all appropriate for right now. I think I originally wrote this class in, I don't know, somewhere in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, early 2000s. But I think it's still applicable today. Again, many of you have heard me say that these basic fundamental skills are so appropriate still. I want to remind everyone that next Tuesday, we're here once again, and we're going to talk about the 5 enemies to prosperity, right? All of the things that may be holding you back. And I want to remind everybody, if you have not joined us for the previous episodes, go on to Greater Boston's YouTube station and watch the other parts of the series. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this hour of your time. I hope I gave you something that will help you find the road to success in your business. Thanks, guys.